Welcome back to the next episode of the shipping news. As you can see, the external framing is done, ready for the cladding. I do have the cladding sitting there, but we just haven't got the roof tin on yet. I have to put the roof tin over the garage carport area before I can start the cladding. So with the wall framing, we've screwed the base plate directly down into the floor of the container. And then when we get up to the top, by the time you put your ceiling joists in and wedge them into the container width and then fix the wall framing to the ceiling joist, it locks the top of the wall frame in place. And then we've come along at regular intervals on the noggings and we weld little L cleats on, and then we fix the framing back to that, and that secures the framing so it's not going to move. Internal framing for the downstairs has all been done. Ceiling insulation is in. We have the foil board put in between the joists, between the studs, sorry. All my backbone wiring has come in. That's the trench where it comes into the house, trench up to there, and it feeds up there and then goes through the container. So we found that this container was a little bit lower than the others, so we've had to build up this floor. What we've had to do is to put the 16mm plywood onto the steel floor, because this is the bunker container, then fix that down. Then we're doing 2 layers of 3mm ply, and then going on top there is the final 16mm of chipboard, and the chipboard will be the final level of the floor. So we also decided to do some limestone paving on the inside living area on the floor between the containers. So to give us a nice stable base, we've come along and we've laid 70mm of concrete all over the living area. Sorry, it's a bit of a mess. And then what we'll do is we'll then just lay the pavers on top, and that'll build up the floor level so it's all nice and flush. With the bunkers, we had a bit of an issue. We decided that we wanted to run the paving through this kitchen area. So that involved cutting the steel floor out, which was a near on impossible. That there is about 4 hours of work on the grinder, and I even got a plasma cutter in, but because the steel is so hard, we just couldn't cut it. We've had to actually come back and weld the places that we did cut out back into place, and we've decided that we will actually put a plywood base onto this and pot rivet it down actually, and then we will just tile on the top to come up to match the floor of the living area. And as it would be, you lay the concrete down, trowel it up, and then just before you go home, the dog decides to walk over it. So on the 40 footer, we've started the gyprock. This is what will be the activity room. We got some big sheets of gyprock going in here, which requires a couple of people to lift up. So we didn't want any vertical joints, so some of these sheets here are about 3.6 long. Again, in the other bedroom for the 40 footer, gyprock all going in except for that long sheet there, which is about 4.2 meters long. That requires an extra hand like before, so we'll have to wait till we get someone coming to help us put that one up. It requires about 3 people to lift that one. Also, where the containers are sitting down into the ground, because I've put these straight onto pad footings, we've come along and rust guarded the base of the containers. Then 2 coats of that, then 2 coats of an etch primer in there, because the sand, as you will see when I pan over to the other side, this area here will eventually be paved, but the sand will be pushing directly up onto the container. We've also installed a grey water system, which picks up all the grey water and distributes it around the site. I'll just pull the lid off. Basically it's a collection tank. There'll be a pump down in there with a float switch, so when that tank fills up to about 150 litres of water, it will get pumped out. I do have to cut that down to what will be the finished paving level. We've got the plumbing set up for rainwater harvesting. So that's the cold water feed coming into the house and just looping out and back into the house. And when we get the rainwater tank and we start collecting it, we'll actually cut this tube here and here, put in a water switch. Then when we have a tap turn on in the house, that water switch will check to see if there's any water in the rainwater tank, and if it is, it'll pump that through, and if not, it'll let the mains water go through. We've also cut our internal doorways going from our living area into the two containers. I now have to come along and frame these, trim them out. We're going to retain the sea container wall on this side. Also, as we pan around the living room, looking into our lounge area over the other side, that will actually stay sea container wall. We'll just paint it. And we have decided on the ceiling, on the underside of these containers, we're just going to put a corrugated iron ceiling through there. So that should look fine. Here's the other doorway going into the 40-footer, which again we need to trim out. Yep, Jemima dog, the tradie dog. This is all she does all day. Doesn't unpack, doesn't pack up, doesn't help with anything. Just lays down and sleeps.